Hey, I'm Nichola.
Hi, I'm Hugh.
And this is our little dinosaur, you. Can you say hello? Oh, you shy now, are you?
Hello.
In this video, we wanted to talk about what it's like raising a child to be bilingual. We thought maybe at the beginning we could get him to say something because he can say a lot, but he might be a little bit shy now. Can you say hello?
Hello.
Can you say 안녕?
안녕.
안녕. So Yule is bilingual, learning simultaneously. So what that means is he's learning English and Korean at the same time. Kids are aware that there's different languages. I think even when they're still in the womb and definitely from birth, they know that there's different languages. What are you doing, buddy? Kangaroo?
캥거루 어떻게 해? 캥거루?
Kangaroo?
캥거루?
It says scratch my big ears. Where are your ears? Where
귀
are
어디
your
있어?
ears? Oh, that's your ears.
코 어디 있어? 코?
There's your nose.
눈?
Eyes, where's your eyes? Yes.
입?
That's
머리.
your mouth. Good job.
머리. 아하.
That's your hair, your head. Good job.
Most of the time I speak Korean to him. Even when I was in Australia, I always speak to him in Korean.
And I'm speaking English mostly, but I will sometimes use some Korean, sometimes to check that he knows what word I'm using, and also to show that we use both languages. So we're mostly the method of one parent, one language, but we also are showing him that I will sometimes be speaking Korean and you will sometimes be speaking English. Now, for those that don't know, we live in Korea, so he's in a Korean-speaking environment a lot. Yeah, purple. There's purple on there. We're speaking English to each other. I think most of our communication is in English. Purple, yeah. You are speaking Korean to him mostly, and then in his environment, he goes to daycare, everything's in Korean. He goes out into the community, everything is in Korean. So his English comes from me. I'm speaking to him in English, and it also comes from listening to us speak in English, because if the only English exposure he was getting was me speaking to him directly, he's not getting the same exposure to natural conversation.
Yes.
So he's getting his oh, don't fall off over there. He's climbing up on something. Thank you for making that big mess over there, toddlers. That's one Upper can read to you, even though this is interesting. This is an Australian book, but it's in Korean. Yeah, it's a wombat.
But this book is like about sleeping, eating.
That's what wombats do.
Eating, sleeping, eating.
That's what wombats do. Oh, and this one's kangaroo. So even though we're in Korea, we have a lot of Australian stuff as well. We really try to balance our cultures, of course, being an intercultural family. And he's also getting English from my family as well. So he does see his grandparents a lot. Nana and Pop? Nana Pop? Can you say Nana? No. Nana Pop. And Nana and Pop are in Australia. In Hoju, aren't they? Oh, there's a kangaroo. Did you see kangaroos in Australia? Yeah.
캥거루 어떻게 뛰어? 이렇게 뛰어.
Yeah, they go jump, jump, jump. And then of course for your parents, they're speaking to him only in Korean. And dialect as well. So there are a lot of myths about raising a bilingual child. There's the one that kids are going to be confused, which is not true. Kids are like really, really smart. That is purple. Can you show that's purple?
Purple.
Can you show
와, 이거
purple?
보여줘. 보라색.
Purple.
Wow. 잘한다.
Wow. What color is this?
Blue.
That's right.
파란색.
Yeah. There is a kind of myth that kids' speech will be really delayed as well. Green. But if there is a bit of delay, there's only like a slight delay that doesn't really matter. So that's not something parents need to worry about too much. The other thing is, that's pink. People who are judging whether it's a delay are often monolingual themselves. So Yule has the same amount of words and sentences that other kids his age, what's normal for them to have. The difference is it's spread over 2 languages. So if you're only speaking Korean, you're only hearing half of what he can actually say. Or if you're only speaking English, you only know the English words that he's saying. Ago. Where's the, oh, there is a crocodile there. So for example, he knows the word for crocodile, but he knows it in Korean. So he said ago in Korean, pointing at it here, but English speaker might not know that. But because I know that word in Korean and I have some Korean, I understand actually how many words that he has. So you really have to know both languages to understand the amount of words and sentences a kid is already saying.
유라, 크로코다일 뭐야?
악어.
악어. 크로코다일 악어야.
A koala. Koala. Okay. Koala is a little bit hard to say, isn't it?
카.
Oh, yeah, okay. The other funny thing with toddlers are so strong-willed, and so sometimes
Koda.
he's convinced the word is a certain thing, and even if I correct him, he'll be like, no, it's this. For example, he calls dinosaurs Guda, which is taking it from the Korean word gongyong, but he's decided that Guda is close enough, and so that's what he calls them.
타타.
And Tata is Triceratops.
트리케라톱스.
Yeah. That's the interesting thing with that. We know a lot of dinosaur names, but they can be said differently in Korean compared to English.
I heard that many people are curious about how to raise their kids as bilingual. But like also many people actually
Yeah.
told me that like you should teach them only one language first and then they will learn language later. But I think it's better to learn like
Simultaneously.
together,
Yeah, that is something that is a myth that modern studies have shown to not be true, but it's still a worry in the community. Oh no, teach them one language first because they won't understand both. Because simultaneous language learning is actually the best for raising bilingual children. And so we do see the question a lot of like, how do I teach my child to be bilingual? And I did see some articles that were saying noises over there at him. Oh, come over here. That's one for Daddy to read to you, okay? I see this one. This one is harder for Mummy. Mummy can't do it in a really natural way. Wow, show Daddy that one. So it's not necessarily about teaching in that sense, it's about the exposure to the languages. So rather than sitting down and trying to teach your child, you need to be learning this language. The best way to be simultaneous bilingual is to have exposure to both languages as equally as possible. And we're very lucky in the sense that we live in Korea, so he has all his Korean language exposure. And then lucky that the main language that we use as a couple is English. If we only spoke Korean to each other, it would be a lot harder for him to be learning English. So we have a really nice balance here, and not everybody has that balance, so there's ways that they've got to try and make things more of a balance, which is harder. So even though it's not necessarily about teaching, it's still about making sure the language exposure is as equal as possible and the child realizes that they need to use both languages. So for Yul, he knows that he needs to have English and Korean. He knows even in his home life that he needs to have some English and some Korean. The real danger for children losing one language is if they start to think that there's not as much importance on one of the languages, and they can be very quick to then drop that language. But for him, he knows that both languages are valuable and very important. And even when we're in Australia, Hugh will still speak Korean to him, and he will meet other Korean people, our friends that are Korean, who will just speak Korean to him. And in Korea, he will speak with other English speakers as well. So he understands that in Australia, he still needs Korean some of the time, and in Korea, he still needs English. So for us, it's very important to make sure that he realizes that both languages are just as valuable as each other. If we lived in Australia, it would be a lot harder for us because Korean would then be the second language that would then maybe appear to be not as valuable. And that's why a lot of Korean Australians can actually lose their Korean if they're not living in Korea. What are some sort of things you've heard people say about bilingual kids, or like misconceptions or myths?
They say they if they don't learn one language first, then they will talk really slowly, and some people say maybe a little bit dumber. But I don't believe that, because it's like, oh, my son start working when he was like 10 months old, like...
Oh, yeah. That's sort of competitive. Eventually all kids walk. So when people talk, oh, my kid walked at this age, it's like, congratulations, that means nothing. And also the studies show that bilingual children, they're using their brain in a different way that gives them a lot of advantages in life as well. And I'll link some articles down below. I think there's still a lot of ignorance about raising bilingual children, even though a big percentage of the world are bilingual from birth anyway. But, you know, Australia is a very monolingual country in the sense of English, and then Korea is a very monolingual country, of course. So we are up against those misconceptions and stereotypes. So Yul understands both languages pretty equally, and he can understand both words, but sometimes at the moment he will choose which ones he will say. So he knows that 사랑해 is I love you, and he'll do the heart sign like this, but he's more likely to say it in English. I love you, that's right.
I love you.
So this will probably be the first of a lot of videos talking about raising a bilingual child. Anybody that's got a toddler knows how difficult they can be. Also, sometimes he's just talking like toddler babble as well. Sometimes I'll be asking you like, is that a Korean word he's learnt from daycare? And you'll be like, it's just like toddler babble. Or he was trying to say something and we're not sure. What is that? Lion. Saja, lion. Crocodile. Ako. So I do have a few questions from people, so we'll have a look at them now. Joanne asked, does he sometimes surprise you by knowing or reacting to a word you thought he didn't know? The other day he woke up and he was next to me and he very aggressively demanded bang, which is bread in Korean.
Bang.
Yeah, bang. And I was sort of half asleep. Do you want some bang? So he quite aggressively demanded bang in my face, and I was half asleep, and I was like, can you please say that politely? Be polite. And he put his hands together in the Korean way of being polite, or of like this, jusei, or being polite. Oops, there goes the book. And I didn't know that he, yeah, that's bang, good boy, you're doing it this way. I didn't know that he actually understood the English word for polite, and that he had related it to the Korean being polite with two hands like that. Oh, juseyo, bang juseyo. He's saying, can I have some bread, please? Bang juseyo. So bang is a word that he only says the Korean. He doesn't usually say the bread, though he can say it. So there's some words where he can say both. Like if he repeats it after me, he can say it, but then usually he is choosing to use the Korean one because he knows I can understand the Korean one. And that's also called code switching, where he's choosing which one he is using. And if he understands that the other person's going to understand that word, then he will use it. Or sometimes he might, if he doesn't know the word in the other language, he'll just use the one that he knows. So sometimes people think this is a child being confused, but they're not. They are just code switching while they are getting the bread with honey on it. Okay, next question. Does Yul watch shows in English and Korean? What are his favorites? Yes, definitely. The great thing about Netflix in Korea is that we can switch whether we have the audio that's English or the audio that is Korean. So some shows, like one of his favorite shows used to be Dino Trucks. I think he's watched them all now, so it's not as interesting. And he can have the Korean voices or the English voices. So he has a good understanding that things can be in both languages and the same thing can be in both languages. So he usually likes things with dinosaurs, not dragons though. He's not tricked into watching dragons. He knows they're a different thing. So he's no interest in like how to train your dragon or that type of thing. But he likes dinosaurs, and there's a kids documentary on Korean Netflix that is about paleontology and dinosaurs with some CGI dinosaurs that he really, really likes.
데디 어딨어?
Yeah, there's
맘이
Appa.
어딨어?
엄마? 엄마? 엄ma.
아빠 어딨어?
Where's Appa? There.
유리 어딨어?
Yeah. Does Yul find it hard having to learn and speak both English and Korean, and are there any other languages that you would like to teach him? So it is not hard for him. This is just his normal life, that there's two languages. So it's not hard in that sense, and also because he's exposed to them very equally. I think for some kids, like if we were in Australia, it might be harder for him with the Korean. And other languages, I think at some early age he will start learning Japanese, and then we'll sort of see what he wants to learn. What do you think?
It's all up to him. But Maybe Spanish
What happened to your Spanish learning?
because I didn't learn, so I want him to learn.
Maybe you guys can learn together, learn some Spanish together. I mean, it depends if he's the type of bilingual that then can naturally learn languages a lot quicker. Of course, me mostly being monolingual and then having to learn a language much later in life, it's a lot harder for me. But for him, if he finds that, you know, he can pick up languages quite well, then of course I'd like him to learn French, European languages, but also knowing like Mandarin, Japanese would be great as well. But of course, it depends on him.
No pressure. All up to you.
What is Yule's favorite Korean and English word? English, his favorite word is apple.
What did you say?
뭐 주세요? You saw just then he said water 주세요, so like please give me water. So he mixed the Korean and English because he knows that we understand both. But in daycare and that he'll be like 뭐 주세요. I think he sometimes does like the 뭐 좀 주세요, which is 좀 주세요. So he did code switching then because he knows that we understand both, but he knows that water is English and 물 is Korean. Favorite word in Korean, what do you think it is?
싫어.
Do you want to explain to people what that means?
싫어 is I don't like it.
Like I don't want it, I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like it's the negative. Like it's it's kind of the equivalent of just saying no, no. And he does say no in English, but 싫어 is something that you hear Korean kids say so much, and they do it like, and he learned this from the kids at daycare, where he's like 싫어. It's used in such a whiny way sometimes. And he says that about 1 million times every day. Sometimes even when he does want something, like I'll be like, oh, do you want to eat this thing? 싫어. Yes, I do want that. You said there's a saying in Korean that you've got 싫어 on the tip of your lips. That like it's the first word, they just have the negative come out because, you know, they're toddlers, they're 2-year-olds.
맛있어?
Is that yummy? All in the mouth like that. Okay, last question. When teaching new words, do you teach the same word in both languages at the same time, or do you let him learn it in Korean first and then teach him the English equivalent later, for example? Most of the time we're teaching him both words at the same time, if it can happen naturally like that. Sometimes if I'm the only one with him, I might not know a Korean word, so he's only hearing that one in English. But any words that I know, I will also be saying in Korean in the sense of like a teaching sense. So he's got books that open up and have like these huge scenes with so much detail, and we'll go and we'll point things out and we'll use both the English and the Korean word. And you are often using the English as well, like switching to make sure that he knows that this one is this one in this language and this one in this language.
How many put?
Oh my, how much did you put in your mouth? Oh, lovely. Are you doing a mukbang, are you?
Did you answer the last question?
Yes. So yes. There's the
This
shito.
one,
That's the
shito.
shito there.
유리빵 나중에 먹자.
So usually it's happening quite naturally, and we're making sure that he usually knows the words in both languages. All right, there's definitely going to be a lot more videos about raising a bilingual child, but that's the stage we're at with a 2-year-old. So he definitely understands so much, but his skills are also spread over 2 languages. So if you're a monolingual, you might not understand everything that he's saying, but across English and Korean, he has a lot of words and a lot of short sentences. So that's the stage he's at the moment. And that's us as an intercultural. Okay, he's telling me that he doesn't want to do this anymore and he wants to say goodbye. Okay, we'll say goodbye. Subscribe to us if you haven't already. Check out the social media and the blog, and we'll see you later.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Can you say bye-bye? Bye-bye. Can you say 안녕?
안녕. You know bye-bye 해주잖아. Bye-bye.
안녕. Can you say I love you? I love you. I love you. Thank you. Insa? Insa? Good boy. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.